It's me again, and this time I am here with a Ben Shapiro Jubilee reaction video. So, let me break down the rules for Jubilee so that you understand what's kind of happening in the clip that we're going to watch. So essentially, Ben Shapiro is in a chair at a table in the center of the room with a timer going. The timer is set to 15 minutes per topic, and the timer stops when either one of two things happens. Either it runs out or runs down to zero, or 14 out of the 26 people around Ben raise their flags. When 14 people raise their flags, the clock stops and there's a countdown for a new speaker who's going to be debating Ben. The countdown goes from 3, 2, 1, and then it opens the floor for everyone to try to race to the chair opposite Ben. Whoever gets to the chair first gets to debate Ben on whatever topic he is claiming, or whatever claim he's affirming. This first one is Kamala Harris's extreme the first claim we're going to be, or the only claim we're going to be talking about, is his second claim in the video, which is Kamala Harris's extreme pro-abortion stance is morally indefensible. And I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to interject my own opinions, of course, but I'm also going to critique the way that the liberals in the audience, or the pro-choice, I should just say the pro-choice individuals, because I don't know if they are liberal. That would just be my assumption. But I'm also going to critique the way that they all handle Ben, because Ben Shapiro is not a novice when it comes to debates. He is probably the best debater that the right has, and he knows it. I honestly think that he grew up wanting to just be the best debater out there. Like that was his goal in life. And he's done a pretty bang up job, but we're gonna see if we can refute some of his points.
My next claim is that Kamala Harris's extreme pro-abortion stance is morally indefensible. What's going on, dude?
Meet you, man.
Hey, good to meet you. Okay, so I just want to clarify the claim because,
sure.
Okay, so the claim that I'm making about Kamala Harris, let's first say like what I believe her position to be. Okay, so she has not stated any abortion law that she would not veto. Right, so the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act, for example, or late-term abortion bans, she would presumably veto that as President of the United States. That's the position that I'm taking in this particular prompt. Okay, so that is the position that I find morally indefensible. Okay, so again, I'm a very, very pro-life person, but I can see at least the sort of nuanced arguments that some people on the left try to make about abortion, even if I disagree with those arguments. The argument that she's making, which is effectively abortion until birth should be in no way regulated, I find that to be morally indefensible.
My understanding right now is that a majority of Democrats would not support abortion through birth. My understanding is the more popular position, I don't think any state lets you go through birth. Maybe I'm off on that. Maybe there's a couple.
California and New York, actually.
Okay, understood. But yeah.
Okay, so first of all, California and New York do not allow abortion until birth. They allow abortion until 24 weeks or fetal viability. So if the fetus is viable at 22 weeks, for example, you cannot abort that fetus. So that was just a lie. Secondly, I'm going to look up what Kamala Harris's stance is on abortion, because my understanding is that she, let's see. She wants legislation to restore the national abortion rights that were eliminated when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. So she wants to go back to what it was when Roe v. Wade was a thing before it was overturned. That sounds reasonable to me. That does not sound like she's advocating for abortion through birth.
I think the key claim is basically, I think most Democrats would want abortion within the first few weeks prior to the development of my personal moral starting point of life, is that the mind is the seat of consciousness, the brain is is where your self is. If you replace your heart, you have a robo heart, you're chilling. If you replace your brain, you're a different person, you're dead. And I think that when that brain first starts to develop, that's sort of where I see the beginning of life and where the fetus gets their first moral consideration. Would you agree that abortion before that point is tolerable?
No, I don't agree with that. But again, quick question, just as far as defining the positions.
Yeah.
So would you agree that late-term abortion is indefensible?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I that's not my position. I would not support that.
So you actually agree with me on the prompt. Okay, so now we get into the broader abortion conversation. That's fine. I mean,
no worries.
That's totally cool. So yes, no.
Do you feel like?
So that's a big problem for me. Like, so you agree with me on the prompt? Like, no, the prompt itself is actually flawed because she does not have an extreme pro-abortion stance. She wants to go back to what it was freaking She wants to go back to how it was when women had the right to seek an abortion and states were able to regulate what that means for themselves, but they were not able to eliminate access to abortion. That is her stance.
Like the moment before birth?
A majority of Democrats have not supported any abortion legislation on the federal level in my entire lifetime, nor do I suppose that they will. So if there were to be a consensus 15-week abortion ban, for example, which is about the status in Europe, I would assume that virtually all Democrats would vote against that 15-week abortion ban. So while I may agree with your more moderate position, or at least use that as a starting point, that is certainly not where the Democratic Party historically has been, nor is it where the Democratic Party is right now.
Awesome, understood. And just to understand where you begin your moral consideration for a fetus.
Where I consider at conception. Right, so I believe in life, that life begins at conception. You now have a human being with potential, not a potential human being. And then the question is exactly what the moral value of that human being is. Once you acknowledge that there is, in fact, a countervailing interest to, for example, a woman's quote-unquote right to choose, once you acknowledge there's an independent interest.
Sure. Thank you so much for your time, Ben.
You made it. You're good. You can relax.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Hello. Nice to meet you. Oh wow, you look better in person. Okay, so
that's very sweet of you. I don't often get that, so thank you.
Okay, it's fine. How do you define abortion really quickly?
Abortion would be the forcible termination of an unborn human life.
Yes, but why do you hold that definition? Would you not assume something like a C-section would be considered an abortion?
No, because the baby is born alive. So.
Okay, I'm going to save you all some time. She talks about a number of things that don't really make sense. She kind of goes in circles. I think she's trying to get Ben to say, I think she's trying to get him to trip up on his words, but you have to be you have to be firm in your definitions and really understand what you're talking about in order to do so. She kind of has the concept of abortion a little wonky, and misses the whole point of the argument. So I'm just gonna skip this part.
Whoa! You know what? Honest to God, just for that, I forfeit. That's some serious efforting right there. Well done.
I'll take
really well
it.
done.
Thank you. Yeah, so on the topic of abortion, I think we have a big focus on the moral aspects of abortion, but I do think we should talk about the legal aspects of life, because when a baby is born, two things happen: birth certificate, social security card. When there are when it's cells in the body, you don't get the birth certificate. You don't get a social security card because it's not alive, it's not born yet. Therefore, when it comes to the security card,
immediate problem, that doesn't happen in every country. That's not, at least it doesn't it's not a determining factor of whether or not someone's alive. Just because a baby doesn't get a birth certificate doesn't make it not a baby. Once the baby's born, even before they get their social security number, even before they get their birth certificate, they're still alive. And at that point, I would absolutely not advocate for somebody killing an alive baby, a baby viable outside of the womb. That would not be acceptable. And that would be morally indefensible. However, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about abortion, which legally, let's see what she has to say.
The moral repercussions of having abortion. I feel like that's very different than legally, because if a cluster of cells in a woman was equivalent to a baby, I should be able to have tax deductions on that kid. I should be able to have child care from the government. I should be able to have child support from the father. But since like the clusters of cells is in fact not a baby, I feel like morally you can say whatever, but legally a clusters of cells is not like
slippery slope, lady. If you want all that and they give it to you, then what? Now all of a sudden you don't have a right to an abortion because they're giving you all of these benefits for a fetus? That's not a good argument. It's not a sound argument.
So sort of hiding behind the legal positivist position, I think, to shield against the morality here is a problem, and I'll tell you why. Okay. So when it comes to, first of all, don't threaten me with a good time. I'm perfectly happy to have people pay paternity for children that are currently in utero. Like that's fine with me. In fact, I think that'd be quite good. I think it would incentivize fathers to stay with the mothers and actually be more responsible. But if we're talking about legal status, there are plenty of people in the United States, for example, who don't have legal status right now, who don't have a social security card, for example, in the United States. Obviously, we can't kill them. They're legal immigrants. We shouldn't murder them. There are lots of people in the legal status does not, in fact, equate to moral status in any sense of the term. I mean, that it's true, for example, that children can't vote and don't actually have control over any of their decision making. Right? I have 4 kids of my own, and I control their decision making because they're very small. Okay, that doesn't mean that I get to kill them. So the idea of legal status, thus being the basis of a moral status, is putting the cart before the horse. The truth is that it's because things have a moral status that we give them a legal status, and obviously you can see that state by state, right? For example, even in the state of California, they had something called Lacey's Law for a while. I think it's still applicable, where if somebody killed a pregnant woman, that could be treated as a double homicide in criminal law. Okay, that sort of stuff applies all over the United States. So using the legal as a substitute to sort of evade the moral question ignores the fact that people make law in the states based on what their moral perception of the issue is.
And that's exactly why I said that was not a sound argument, because look at that. He pulled up another law that actually reinforces the idea that fetus can be considered a human being. And now your entire argument just went up in smoke.
The law follows the moral perception, not the other way around.
Yes, I agree, but I think there is a problem with the moral perception, especially when you consider that morality varies all across America. It's not uniform anywhere. And that's a big problem, especially when you see in the South when they're having like 6-week abortion bans, which is detrimental to women's health. Because as we see in Georgia right now, there were 2 women who were pregnant who went to a hospital, get health care, and they were denied that care because there was confusion surrounding abortion laws. That's why I focus more so on the legality aspect of it, because that's something that's uniform. That's something that could be known.
It isn't uniform though, right? I mean, it does vary state to state. I mean, as you yourself just acknowledged.
True, yes.
So, when it comes to sort of we can get into the specifics of those particular Georgia cases. One of them particularly has been relatively badly covered. It's about a woman who took basically both doses of the abortion medication. She took it without the supervision of a doctor. She then experienced essentially sepsis, and she went to the hospital late. And then under no interpretation, by this point, she had twins. Both of the fetuses were unfortunately dead by this point, so there actually was no legal problem with performing a DNC at that time, and the hospital misinterpreted the law.
What about the other woman? You want to talk about the specifics of the other woman? No? I wonder why, Ben.
Without getting into more details about that particular case, the real question when it comes to abortion was, and always will be, how we weigh 2 separate considerations. One is the moral value of the life of the fetus, and the second is the woman's right to choose. The problem is that these are sort of mutually exclusive, meaning that I don't have a right to choose about your life, right? About whether I get to kill you or not, or about the children that I have who are already born. And so the right to choose is obviated by the acknowledgement of a moral status on the part of the child, and vice versa, right? If you're willing to say that the child has no moral status whatever, then there really is no problem with abortion. The big moral problem I have with the sort of Kamala Harris position and the position that I have. Sorry. Mm-hmm.
I think I got the judges over here.
All right.
Hey, nice to meet you, Ben.
Plus, I'll see you again later, dude. All right. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to
Hey,
meet
Cam.
you.
Hey, appreciate you.
So I really just want to touch on the fact that he discussed the moral position. Morally speaking, the reality is if you woke up tomorrow and you were hooked up to a coma patient who needed your blood and only your blood to survive, you could absolutely withdraw care because you have bodily autonomy. And that's something that we uphold in the law. Nobody can force you to do anything with your body that you don't want to do. Even after you die, even to the point where we respect bodily autonomy after you are dead, we can't harvest organs without getting permission from next of kin, or if you sign up to be an organ donor yourself before you pass. Those are the only two ways that we are legally allowed to procure organs, life-saving organs that could save millions of people. I mean, people die every day. It's very, very sad, but there are so many organs that go to waste because we respect bodily autonomy. And I think that's good. I don't think we should change that, no matter how many lives we could save. It's harsh, but it's true because it's a fundamental, I mean, it's a fundamental right. And once we violate that right, how far does it go? What else are you going to make me do with my body? And childbirth is not minor. It is traumatic, especially when it's not wanted.
Being here and having an open discussion.
Yeah, you bet it's fun.
Let's say that just hypothetically, right? Baby's born.
Very quickly. Yeah, you bet it's fun. He means that. He has like fun with this. Like I said, he wanted to be a professional debater. Like that is what he does. That's why when you come to debate Ben Shapiro, you best come correct, because if you're not prepared, it can go wrong in so many ways, and you can look completely stupid even if your position is morally correct or reasonable.
Born. Mm-hmm. Baby, mama can't feed the baby. She's not breastfeeding. Baby dies. Morally, do you feel like that would be better than if the baby would have just been like aborted before it was born?
I mean, I'm not sure that there's any. I mean, I think that it's significantly worse to purposefully kill a child rather than accidentally or through circumstances kill a child.
Not accidentally, right? She cannot.
She didn't purposefully kill the child.
She can't afford it, right?
I mean,
she can't afford to have the baby, and so you're saying that Kamala Harris is extreme, but your stance is that women are being forced to have children, even if they decide that for whatever reason. I don't care. I don't care.
Why don't you care? Why don't you care? Because you give me a very specific example.
Because it's not between me. Because it is not between me.
Right, but
it is between that mom, her health, her relationship with whoever she believes in. It is not on me.
Here's sort of the problem. Mm-hmm. You're extrapolating from a very emotionally laden example to everything. And I'm wondering how you're doing that. So you give me a case in which you have a woman who, for whatever reason, literally cannot feed her child. For some reason, adoption's not available. There are no food stamps. There's literally nothing. She's in a desert by herself and the baby's going to die. Is that abortion equivalent to a woman who decides to, because she doesn't want the baby for economic reasons or because it's going to crimp her lifestyle, whatever, you said you don't care about the reason at all. That's your words, not mine. So she's 15 weeks pregnant. She wants to kill it. That's the same? Why?
You're asking me why it's the same. I'm asking you why isn't it the same? Why is a baby who
I think it's pretty self-evidently the same, not the same.
Can't be born say that if she doesn't want to, if she says that I can't economically afford this child, that's like somebody going and saying, I can't economically afford this car, and the car salesperson still taking them on a test drive. Like, what's the point if they've already told you that they are not going to be able to economically afford it unless you get.
This is why the argument that women have to be economically unstable or emotionally unstable or there needs to be a reason undermines the entire argument. The best place you can go is bodily autonomy. And you want to know why? Because there is no rebuttal to that. What are you going to say? I don't have a right to my body? Or are you going to say that because I engaged in an act that created this fetus, that it is now my responsibility, even though once that fetus is born, you still can't force me to give that child my organ? Even though, of course, if I had a child and they needed an organ, I would want to give it to them, but nobody could make me. Even my blood, they couldn't make me do that. Because once a child is born, now they somewhat I have less of a moral obligation to them than before they're born? Explain that to me, Ben, please.
You give them, like you said, okay, what about abortion? Well, there's how many people in foster care that aren't being adopted right now today? All right.
Should we kill them or what?
I'm not saying we should kill them. I'm just saying that should we
No, that's more like somebody saying, I economically cannot afford this car, and somebody signing them up for the auto loan anyway. That's more equatable. This guy, honestly, I appreciate that he respects a woman's right to choose, but I don't think he's doing a good job defending the point. No, Ben, he's making the point that we have so many kids that aren't adopted already. How many options do we really have for people who aren't able to take care of children? Because that is a reality. There are people who are just not able to take care of children. And even worse, there are people who are having kids and taking care of them anyway. And those kids are going without. They just are. It's happening. And that's not even the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is somebody with some sort of personality disorder or some sort of substance abuse problem who is physically unable to take care of their child because they have this mental health problem going on, and they're unable to provide. Like, that results in more than just neglect. That can result in abuse. It's so dangerous.
We wait at least until
would have been better if they were
those
dead.
People. You tell me.
No, you tell me. You're the one who's
If
suggesting
those
there's
people,
that's a matter of moral apathy, whether those kids were born or not. I don't think so.
So if kids are in foster care and not being treated well, they're being abused. They're not being fed.
That is a horrific problem, yes.
They're being locked. The fridge is being locked, and they're told they can't go get it because there are people who are only in it because they're getting a check. You're saying that is morally
superior to killing them? Yes.
To before they're born. So
yes.
You're saying that torturing a human being who's born, like they're a real life human today. No,
I'm not the one in favor of torture. You're the one in favor of unborn people being killed.
If the only way you survive is food and water, and you rely on someone else to provide that to you, and they're not providing it to you, what would you call that?
I'm confused by.
I know you are, because your argument contradicts itself.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, the argument that you're making is that a born child deprived of food and water never should have been born.
No,
I don't see why that follows.
That's not my argument. My argument.
Thanks a lot. Well, okay, we're gonna take this chair.
Okay, I am not going to interrupt this guy. I'm going to let him talk for the entirety of the time that he talks because I think it is pretty funny. But before he talks, I just want to say once again that this is about abortion and this is about being pro-life or pro-choice. And if you are pro-life, I don't think that anybody should be able to force you to have an abortion. But that is a personal decision that you need to make for yourself. Oftentimes, people who are pro-life find their basis in religion. So for those of you who believe that abortion goes against your religion and that's why you are against it, keep in mind that we live in a country that has freedom from religion. So your religion cannot be used to impose restrictions on me. That's why Ben is saying that it's morally indefensible and not that it goes against Christianity or Judaism. Because if he stated that it went against his religion, which is Judaism, sorry, Ben, I called you Christian on accident. If he had said that, it would easily be slam dunkable. He's not stupid. Ben Shapiro is a very smart man. So you can't come at him with very basic arguments. You have to really, the only one you can come back at with is the bodily autonomy argument. And I really would like to know how he feels about that.
Look at that.
Hey, Ben.
Like a bro, my friend. All right.
How's it going?
Let's break open
first question, can men get pregnant?
Men cannot get pregnant.
Okay, awesome. So
definitionally.
Definitionally, okay. Do men experience SA? Sexual assault?
Sure.
Got it. What about the existence of trans men?
What about the existence? Do you mean women who believe that they are men? What are we talking about here? Women experiencing gender dysphoria?
So my other question is, do you benefit from white supremacy in any way, shape, or form?
I'm going to need more specifics on what you mean by white
Well, here, let me
supremacy.
give it to you, Ben.
Sure, please.
So I'm a transgender man.
Okay.
I've experienced SA.
Okay.
And abortion rights affect me directly. So if we're talking about the American dream that you live, why don't I have access to that? Because there's no legislation, in the history of America, that legislates a man's body, so why does mine have to be legislated? I've got a vagina.
I'm not interested in what your genitalia are.
Clearly you are. I mean, it's all over everything you make, buddy. I'm sorry. I hate to say it to you, but
I think you can read on my face that I
obsession
radically
you
am
guys
not.
have.
I think you can read on my face that I radically am not. When we're talking about
No,
abortion,
I don't. I mean, you can present it here, but in most of the content that you have, you attack my community constantly. And you don't even realize guys like me exist who actually share a lot of similarities to you and everything, because I'm a married man of 20 years.
I've
got a wife.
I recognize that you exist. I disagree with your
Right,
claim
so
that you
if
are a
I
male.
was sexually assaulted, right, and I didn't have access to that abortion care, do you believe that I should have carried that child to term because
What does
I
this
was
have to-
sexually assaulted?
I mean,
No, I just want to make sure that that's what you believe. Because as a transgender man, I have seen your side of the entire political debate, never ever having the conversation of what an American freedom is. Because why am I not allowed to live my American freedom as a man? You know, I mean, you get your choice as a man to live and free and all that.
You're really moving around terminology very wildly here.
And so are you, because that's the tactics you play in your game. And you've done it the entire time. You've jumped from one subject to the next. You speak so fast, and I know how you work. So how does it feel to have it in your face?
Well, I mean...
Because I'm sick and tired of the shit that you have put against my community, especially black trans women. Because you constantly disregard all of our needs and then use us politically as a pawn when we're 1% of the population. Why not focus on the economy itself? All of us are struggling, and you want to focus on trans people. You want to focus on a black woman when this is clearly a glass cliff situation. America's falling apart, and let's give it a woman right when it's all falling apart, when we'd had, 50 men run it and it looks like shit? Look at where we're at. Truly, where do you think that we're heading? I mean, it's so funny to watch white supremacy just fall apart the way that it is, and you ride so hard. Because guess what? In other countries around the world, women are not having children. And why is it? Because of the patriarchy and all the violence that men perpetuate, and all of this idea that abortion is somehow going to solve it all by forcing women to have abortion instead of focusing on the real problems that we're facing in our society. We're just going to completely ignore that, and we're just going to go, you know what? The line item is, let's make women have babies so that we can continue this capitalistic society that we have. Why are we doing that? What? I mean, why? Because you want to push white supremacy and because you want to make your check? It does great for you? Meanwhile, people like me have to live with the consequences of all of your rhetoric that you put on a daily basis. And including my entire community and the intersectionalities of black women, men that experience SA, trans people, everyone that comes in. And I'm so sick of the idea that you can come in with this bravado, that you're this big guy that knows things because you can talk fast, you have statistics. But really, what does it really matter at the end of the day if you are harming the entire American? This guy's been accused of rape. Trump, in court documents, and you're backing the guy. You have children. How could you do that to your own? Don't you have a daughter? What is wrong with you, dude? I've never seen such a party just completely the American idea, what we believe in as a country, is not what you're perpetuating. It's diversity. It's giving you tired, hungry, and poor. The Google phone you have in your pocket is because of all of the diversity we've had.
Pause.
Pleasure to meet you.
Okay, there's a lot of tension.
I wanted to let him get that part out. Okay. So, first, I just want to say, Ben, I'm sorry that you had to sit there and endure that. You want to know why I'm sorry? Because it was public, and whether you ever admit it or not, it was probably slightly humiliating. It was hilarious to watch, and it was honestly just a genuine expression from this man who has experienced probably so much hate and oppression in his life, and you unfortunately culminate in, or excuse me, you unfortunately perpetuate um, a lot of the rhetoric that encourages that hate and that oppression. So I'm not going to say, that he was right to do it. This wasn't necessarily like the right platform for it, but it was still funny, and I'm glad he got to say what he wanted to say.
There's a lot of tension in the room now. Let's stay cordial. Let's stay respectful, please. Please, please.
Hi, how are you?
Nice to meet you. So let's say that I'm voted out by my friends here, and I stand up and immediately collapse onto the ground. Paramedics rush in, and through some magical means, they determine that the only person who can save my life is you. You can do that by giving me a transplant. Can you be forced to give me a transplant?
I cannot.
Why?
Because I do not have a parental relationship with you, and thus I do not owe you a duty of care in the same way that I would if, say, you were my son.
Can a parent be forced to give a kid a transplant?
No, because you have bodily autonomy, and because the concept of bodily autonomy has been upheld in federal law.
Yes, a parent can be forced to give a kid an enormous number of resources, or should be.
Can you be forced to give me blood?
No.
Do you believe that the average person should be able to be forced by the government to do something with their body?
It depends what, because
Why
that
can
is
you
the
not be
nature of
forced
law.
to give me? Why can you not be forced to give me an organ?
Because I do not owe you a duty of care sufficient to remove an organ
Because
from
you
me.
cannot be forced to use your body to sustain my own, and that is the crux of
Because
the
I do not owe
abortion
you a
argument.
duty to
because
care.
No, because you have bodily autonomy, Ben. See, and this is why I wish I was there, because nobody is saying this word. It's very, very I just want to know what he would say to it.
You cannot be forced to use your body to sustain my own, and that is the crux of the abortion argument. And the problem is, and it's very morally
You're ignoring the
inconsistent.
parental relationship.
Because there's a point here. There's a very morally inconsistent part to your argument right here. If you do not believe that you should be forced to sustain my body using your own, then you should also not believe that a woman should be forced to sustain a child that they do not want to carry in utero. Is the same basic argument.
Well,
it doesn't matter how you get there. Let's say that you crash into me on the way out of here.
Well, no, it's
if
actually,
you hit
it's
into
not
me,
the, it's actually
yes,
not
it
the
is,
same
but
argument.
it is. If you say that, let's say that you run into me on the way out of here. If you crash into me, it doesn't matter that that is the reason why I am in that state. You cannot be forced to give me blood. You cannot be forced to give me an organ. You cannot be forced to use your body to sustain my own.
An abortion includes a pre-existing physical connection between the two bodies. So a better example would be the so-called dead violinist example or dying violinist example that was put forward by a philosopher, I can't remember her name. The basic idea there is that you wake up in a room and I'm connected to you, right? And you have some sort of health condition, I'm connected to you, and I'm giving you a blood transfusion. And if I remove that, you'll die. Do I have a duty not to remove it? I think there's actually a fairly decent case that I actually do have a duty.
No, you do not. You do not have a duty to be forced to. No,
why are you defining my moral position?
You do not have a duty to sustain someone else's body using your own. Thank you.
It's been tough to get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 5'2".
You made it.
I'm the only one in the room shorter than you. Okay, so honestly, my understanding of Kamala's plan is a return to Roe v. Wade, but in the legislative level. That seems to be the majority opinion by the American people. They were not for the removal, right? Trump is not really for an abortion ban, right?
I mean, he himself has said he is not.
Okay, yeah, but unfortunately, the way he governs, he puts those three folks in the Supreme Court. They do it. His vice presidential pick really wants to do it. He's claiming now that everybody wants it to the states. Nobody wanted it. No, that was not the demand. I think people are just kind of interested in protecting their freedoms. It's a bigger discussion about freedom. And I think Kamala Harris is going to be the presidential pick to protect the freedoms.
Okay, so again, I think that we have to define what we think Kamala Harris's position is. I think that it goes well beyond simply restoring Roe versus Wade, for example, which is
But it doesn't. You can't just say, I think it does, and it is so. It doesn't. She's stated this. She stated that she just wants a return of Roe v. Wade, but on a legislative level, just like this guy said.
extremely flawed legal decision, a wide variety of legal scholars ranging from right to left. Ruth Bader Ginsburg used to point out that was a very flawed legal decision.
We can't pretend that this is like a bipartisan thing. Roe v. Wade was a problem. The bipartisan thing.
No,
was
you might like
having
the
Roe v. Wade.
you might like the results. You might like the results of Roe versus Wade. The actual legal decision is a bad legal decision.
I think that
That's the end of this claim.
I'm glad you finally made it, though.
Hopefully I can come back for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that is really what I wanted to talk about when it comes to abortion. Again, I think that the biggest piece here is bodily autonomy and the fact that nobody can make you do anything with your body that you do not consent to. And I just think it is so unfortunate that most people don't ever want to get an abortion. For most people, it's an extremely heavy and emotional time. And legislating bans that make it that much more difficult for somebody to get access to the care that they need only makes that time that much more difficult for them. So I do urge you, if you know, are in the middle or you're not quite sure how you feel, please consider all of the facts. Um, do your own research. Consider what you believe, where you believe life begins, and even beyond that, what you think about what somebody can force you to do with your own body. And if you're a man, I'd urge you to consider what you would feel about this topic if you were the one who had to carry the child. Um, it's it's not something that any woman would enter into arbitrarily, and the few that do should not be representative of the many who mostly just want to live their lives. Um, that's really all I have today. I know it wasn't super fun, it was kind of serious, but we'll get back to productivity and personal growth in the next couple days. All right. Bye.